Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and video show which brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe so you won't miss a new episode. I'm your host, Frits Bussemaker, and today I'm delighted and privileged to have a conversation with Martin Ruebens. Martin, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Welcome.
Allow me, Martin, to introduce you to our audience. You are a lifelong employee of the Flemish government starting in 1990, where over 10 years you were the Secretary General of the Flemish Department of Chancellery and Public Governance, which basically I believe is the highest position one can have in the Flemish government. You're currently the Program Manager for the Public Sector Innovation in the Flemish Public Administration, and a background as includes a PhD in psychology. I hope I covered you well. Again, welcome to the program.
Hi, Frits.
First of all,
one brief correction. It was a PhD in sociology.
Sociology. Oh, sorry. Okay. Good point. You started your career working for the Flemish government. Before we go into why you made that decision, could you maybe for the audience explain the relationship between Belgium, the Flemish and the Wallonian parts? Because that, if you're not from Belgium, it might be a little bit confusing, so people can place you where you are.
Even for the Belgians, it's a little bit confused. We live in a more very complicated federal state, and we have two major regions, the Flanders and the Wallonian region, and we have a lot of governments in Belgium. So some say too much government in that small country. So the northern part of Belgium is Flanders and has its own competences and its own government. And at the federal level, we have competence like justice, defense, macroeconomics, etc. But the education, mobility, social care, these are competences of Flanders. So I worked for 33 years in this Flemish administration, and it was not a very deliberated choice to become a civil servant. It was more accidentally that I started at the Flemish administration. I studied sociology. I obtained my PhD, and that was in the late 80s. And there was a lot of unemployment in Flanders, and I took the job up that became an opportunity for me, and I started as a junior researcher in a very small research project at the Flemish administration, and then I was very excited about the reform capacity of the Flemish administration, because in my PhD I was looking at different organizational theories about social change and organizational change. And so I was fascinated that there was a lot of opportunities over there to become involved in different reform projects. So I started as a junior consultant, later on as a senior consultant, and then I stepped into a leadership role. And so throughout my career, I'm very excited and interested in how organizations are changing, like what makes them change.
Yeah. So basically, it was like the biggest living lab for you possible to be part of.
Oh yes. It was for a very exciting project that I could be involved. So it was very nice to look back to it.
Okay, and never had the interest to go outside. It's always been, once you were in, you realized this is my place. I belong here.
And a Flemish administration, I think a lot of administrations are golden cages. You're very comfortable to work in. You had the opportunity and the chance to have a lot of autonomy in my job. I was involved in different very interesting projects, so it's nice to work in the Flemish administration. also, yeah, I was. It's for me, it's very important that in my job there's a meaning to give in that job, a meaning in towards social relevance, and that's I found it over there, so I didn't look out to other jobs. So.
Okay, now my experience with governments in general, and this is a very generic and general statement, is that they are in its nature, because of the people the government employs, quite conservative. So don't rock the boat, don't change. So on one hand, I hear you talking about changing the organization. That's possible, but at the same time, there's a tendency to push back.
That's the greatest challenge. Also, when I started in the 90s in that junior consultant role, we imported insights from the private sector. It was the period of the new public management. We started to think about a government in terms of to be client oriented, to have business plans, to have KPIs, to become more efficient. And when we use those words that were very common in private sector, for many of my colleagues, that was very astonishing. What is happening over here? What are we doing here? And it took a lot of these conversations and different projects also to implement this more efficiency attitude in the government. But now when I look back and I compare the attitude of the Flemish administration with the new employees that are coming in our administration, then I see a major shift. Many of the young employees now, they are very eager to work in projects that are societal relevant, and they want to do something back to society. And so the attitude of the employees has completely shifted over those 3 decennia.
Okay. Makes me wonder, when you started off as a junior civil servant, when you started, did somebody watch your back? Did you have a senior person, hey, please do what you're doing, I'm going to coach you because I think you're in the right direction? So did people recognize your ideas at the time?
The coaching for me as a junior consultant in the Flemish administration was merely done by the external consultants. I worked in a team with external consultants who are bringing in those new ideas of new public management, and that was for me the most important backing on the level of expertise. But what was also important is that there wasn't our Minister of Public Affairs in that time was very fond also of that new public management ideas, and it was his presence in the debate in the Flemish administration that was very important to open new doors. So for me, it was very comfortable. There was a leadership out there who was very eager to implement those new insights. And I got a lot of expertise from outside the government, so it was very comfortable for me to work in those directions.
But I can imagine that former minister, that I would say is a key element.
Yes,
to be able to actually execute on those ideas.
That was very important, and not all of my colleagues and not all the top management in that time like this new approach.
Okay, and by the way, how's that today? Despite the fact you said, okay, the new joiners want to do something in society, but what you see around with the colleagues around you, do people accept that?
I think it's like it's a balance over time, because now when I look at the Flemish administration, I think it's certainly after the COVID crisis, we returned back into a more risk-averse administration. We are seeking out to in those turbulent times we are seeking stability, continuity, and yeah, I see that my colleagues at the top management level are not very eager anymore to invest in very uncertain experimentation projects. So I think it's a balance that we have to refine.
Okay. By the way, how big is the Flemish government in size of and the number of people who work there?
About 30,000.
30.
30.
Yeah. It's a significant organization.
It's a significant organization. Yeah.
So at a certain point, you for over 10 years, you were the Secretary General, the highest function in the Flemish government. And I read somewhere online that you took on the responsibility to transform the department from a traditional hierarchical organization towards a network organization based on self-management, purpose-driven, human-centric. What did you see that you realized I need to change this?
I was very confronted with the number of burnouts in our organization. And also, I know a lot of people also in my private sphere that have been through a process of burnout. And that was for me the trigger to rethink how we are as a manager, how we are filling in our role as a manager in an organization. And I think we are looking at organizations too often as a machine, right? As something that we can get into action by a lot of processes, by a lot of business plans, by a lot of good structures to function. But we often forget that these are not machines, but living systems with humans and with people who are investing their energy in that organization. So I started to think about how is it possible that we arrive at such a large number of burnouts, and that was that it was not in relation to how a lot of organizations, and also in the Flemish administration, are organizing themselves. So I think that the hierarchical way of working is not the most comfortable environment to have a lot of attention to what gives people really energy in doing their job. So I started with looking around, talking with my employees about what do you need to be happy at your job and to gain more energy in your job than you have to put in that job. And so I started with self-steering teams. I abolished, that's a strange word, but I removed the hierarchical levels in not very top down, but in conversation, in dialogue with the different people. And we started to rethink what are we as a department, and can we discuss with one another, with all the members of that department. At the time, I had the department about 250 people. So I started a very open dialogue with them on what is the strategy of our department. It's not the strategy of a department is not something that only the management team has to discuss. And I saw that a lot of employees have a lot of interesting ideas of what this strategy could be and how we could obtain that strategy, how we could fill in that strategy. So it was a big eye-opener that the wisdom of how an organization can perform very efficient and very effective is not a privilege of the management team. It's something you can had a transparent and open dialogue with all of your employees. Maybe not 100%, but there are a lot of employees that are very eager to discuss with you about the strategy of the organization, and not only about the tools they have to implement, about the working conditions, but it was very interesting to see they also have a lot of wisdom, a lot of insights about the strategy of your department.
Okay, now I have this generates me a couple of questions. First of all, did people embrace this, and were the people who did not embrace this? And I'm asking the second question because we've grown up in a world of command and control of unique value propositions, what sets us apart. So a lot of people in a management position who very much appreciate their position in the hierarchy because it gives them power and status. So what happened when you proposed these ideas?
Well, there was very immediately there was a small group of people, about 20 people, 25, who stand up and said, I want to join this. I want to join this project. I want to make it a success. And after a few months, we started an internal review, and we asked all the employees about what is your affection with this project, and how do you think about it? And we saw there a nice Gauss curve in this approach. And there was a small group who are very fond of this project, and there was also a small group that said it will not work. That is not what I look for. That is not what I want. So it will not be a success. And was a large group in the middle that was looking around what will happen. And after 2 years, I made again a review of how people are looking to this project, and then I saw that was the Gauss curve shifted into a whale curve, and there was a large amount of people who were very fond of this because they saw that. Sometimes I think giving autonomy to your employees is it's in the beginning it's makes them afraid because they cannot hide anymore. They have to present themselves, and if you create a safe environment in which they can fail, in which they can explain their ideas, in which they can try out their ideas, then in a slow pace, you see that they involve I don't have to be afraid of my presenting myself in this organization as somebody who has ideas, who has insights, who wants to do something new and to experiment something.
Okay. This is actually a nice segue to something I also know you are involved in, and that is the whole concept of developing civil entrepreneurship. It sounds like what you're now talking about is what could be called civil entrepreneurship. Maybe you could first define what civil entrepreneurship is, and how to get there.
In the administration, we all see ourselves as civil servants, and that's a concept that has been over years been central concept of what is an employee in the administration. Is somebody who is client oriented, who is a problem solver, who is reliable, who is efficient, and these are qualities that are still very important in the administration nowadays. But we need something more, because the world around us and the problems we have to solve as a government, the easiest problems are already solved. What remains are the more complex issues, the wicked issues. And the solutions in which we have had in 3 decennia ago to solve societal issues, societal problems, are not anymore sufficient to tackle these wicked issues. So we have to become a government who is more willing to participate in partnerships with other organizations, with enterprises, with citizens also. And if you want to create those vital partnerships, we have to incorporate also other skills and other characteristics as an employee in the administration. Okay. So we have to be able to be smoothly in changing our positions. We have to be curious. We have to be creative. We have to be able to experiment, to like experiments. We have to be, I think a very important characteristic is to have a very healthy and respectful curiosity in what other actors in society are thinking and because we don't have the privilege as a government to think that we are the only one who knows what the problem is. We have to listen to other organizations and other enterprises and citizens, to listen very open to, is this problem, is this wicked issue, how do you refer to it, how do you think about what is the problem, before we started the discussion about how can we solve this. Mm-hmm. And also on the level of seeking solutions, we have to listen to the wisdom of organizations and enterprises in society, because we have to, as a government, we have to be more humble in thinking that we have the expertise to solve wicked issues.
Okay, so civil entrepreneurship is, what I'm now hearing is helping to organize multi-stakeholder teams to find solutions for the challenges of today. But how have the government challenges changed over the years that we need this type of solution?
Because in the 90s and I think in the early years of this century, we could start reform projects or start new policy instruments with what we could say a normal business plan. We are investigate what is the as-is situation. We know what is a to-be situation we want to get in, and then we designed a project plan with different milestones, and so we started. But a project of 5 years nowadays, and we see the Ukraine crisis and the COVID crisis, then we see that a project with a life horizon of 5 years, that's too far away. So we have to be more resilient in setting up project management, and we have to incorporate a lot of a kaleidoscope of ideas and insights in how we could tackle this societal issue. So it was very important to start to work beyond stability and continuity, and to become more less risk averse, and to start more with experimentation, but also with starting, if the experiment fails, then we have to be very resilient to change that roadmap. So I think it was very important to have more flexible roadmaps in tackling societal issues.
I got it, and I do recognize those changes in society which needs different solutions. So how is that related? Because it's interesting you said post-COVID, you see people are being are more risk averse. At the same time, you actually then move to a position which is even more challenging, at being the program manager of public sector innovation.
Yeah, that's true. There's
You're sticking your neck out.
Yeah, that's true. But I'm very fond of that. I have the opportunity to be program manager of this project because I see it as the a kind of final period in my professional career, and it gives me the privilege now. I have no management duties anymore, and it gives me the privilege of wandering around in this big Flemish administration and seeking interesting people with interesting ideas, with interesting projects, and I bring them together, and I create an environment in which they can showcase these projects. So, and I think that is the best medicine against the tendency that we have more risk averse spirit nowadays in the administration, because these people are these policy advisors who are implementing different innovation projects are very humble in their ambition often, and I give them a stage in which they can show what they are doing, and it gives them also the energy of, okay, yeah, maybe I have not to be too humble about my projects. I can show it to people, and they are interested in, and so it gives them more energy to take risks, to continue to experiment, to try out new ideas, new projects, etc.
Okay, and how do you, in that context, define success? If it's about tryouts, experimenting, when can you look back and say, look, we've done something good?
I think the most important factor to measure success is the amount of learnings you have out what you do. It can be an experiment that fails totally. Mm-hmm. It could be that you took the wrong way, but then it's a very important, what have we learned about it? What have we learned in this failing project about how we could do it different, better, but certainly different in the future. And I think we have to be a more learning organization in government, okay. And that's the main challenge we have to fulfill in now.
So, are you able to identify your own biggest failure, mistake, and what did you learn from it?
I started as a president of the highest management board in the Flemish administration, and I thought, okay, no, I'm in a very comfortable position now. I can implement my ideas, and I can convince my colleagues in the management board to take different roadmaps and steps in the development of our big organization. And I think it was not a good idea to only rely on this position. And I think it was, and I see when I compare now with the role I have now, I have the opportunity now to talk with a lot of people in different organizations at the level of the people who are doing the experiments, who are doing the projects. And then I think when I stepped in that management role as a president role of that management board, I think I was in too much isolated in an ivory tower. And stepping out this ivory tower is my most important learning point.
Yeah, it's actually funny. You say, well, from a position of hierarchy, my advice is for people to ignore the hierarchy.
Yes.
And yeah, that's an interesting paradox. But no, I get your point. So it's not about you should do this because I'm a boss.
Yeah.
You should do this because of the content and the message
I
want to portray.
If hierarchy means that you think of yourself that you have the nicest ideas of what the strategy have to be, how you can obtain this strategy, then you're wrong. If you're a manager who is able and who wants to listen to the wisdom that is in the organization, but also outside the organization, then I think you become a more adapted manager to the issues of our time.
Hey, Martin, time is running fast. I'm going to ask you one final question for this great interview, and I want to thank you for sharing your insights so far. But what's your advice to young managers, young civil servants starting their own journey?
Keep going. Keep going, even if the road is very uncertain, very with a lot of obstacles, but keep going, because I think that's a characteristic that we have to improve, and we have to embrace it with our young employees. They have great ideas, so don't stop to fulfill them.
Basically, you're saying become a civil entrepreneur and go for
it. Do it. You can do it.
Yeah. Fully understand where you're coming from. Martin Ruebens, thank you so much for your time with us spending on the brand called You. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Fritz. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the brand called You.